All right, a third or half, and just film supporter, film fan, or okay, and then just the rest of random black and white folks that came to the festival on a Saturday. So we have a good mix. Thank you all for being here. And then I think I've been saying I would do a podcast. I was on the radio for a couple of years, and again, last 10 years or so, been watching this evolution. What I like to call the new black film revolution. And, it does go in cycles. 2018, I think, though, was a groundbreaking year in the sense where it's like the convergence, you understand the term, the convergence, like they say in like 30 or 40 years from now, the computer technology will be so advanced that we literally won't be able to tell our reality from what computers are able to generate. Right, so that's the convergence between the technology and the reality. And I think that 2018, in a lot of ways, and precursor with the success of films like Get Out and Straight Outta Compton, a lot of myths were dispelled, and there was a legitimate breakthrough in terms of saturation in 2018. 2018, we saw 5 black directors make films in Hollywood that grossed over $100 million. You had Peter Ramsey, who was a co-director on Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse, Ava DuVernay, of course, with Wrinkle in Time, Ryan Coogler with Black Panther. I'm sure everybody in this room has seen Black Panther, right? Who hasn't, though? That's the thing. Who saw it like more than 4 times? Oh my God! So who went with dashikis on? That was an emotional moment for us. Unfortunately, it didn't put any more money into anybody's pocket. It made Marvel very rich, but it did dispel the belief that there's a limited audience for films that are representative of black folks. So that was clearly the tipping point. And then Creed 2 was out, which was produced by Ryan Coogler, but he handed off the directing to Stephen Caples, who was a fellow student of his at USC. So that's 4, and then number 5, of course. Where were you? Well, I'm lost. Oh, Equalizer 2, with Antoine Fuqua, Denzel Washington film. So we have that, and then also as we speak, Sundance is happening. There's 46 black filmmakers or black directors up there showing short films and documentaries. Oprah took over Sundance. Oprah's over there talking, and Jada Pinkett's doing workshops and stuff. So Sundance is the legitimizing factor for a lot of independent filmmakers, and for black filmmakers, it's been the dominant force in terms of awards. Disproportionately, you see more black filmmakers winning awards at Sundance. Last year, I was up there. Sorry to Bother You was there, and Blind Spotting. The talk of the entire festival were the black represented films, and then it trickles down to the Oscar nominations. We have so many films in 2019 that are reflective of that. Black Klansman, Spike Lee, very first. He's made like 30, 40 movies, not counting the commercials and the music videos. This is his first Best Director nomination, for Black Klansman. And you have Black Panther, Ruth Carter, who did the costumes on School Days, finally getting a nomination for designing the wardrobe in Black Panther. So this is clearly some energy there. So just throwing that information out there. But how are you perceiving the film? What are you taking away from the information that's already presented? I'm just curious. Did you like the film, first off? But yeah.
I thought it was. I'll take the mic. I thought it was real educational, letting us. I hate that a lot of us still can't pinpoint where we are. Like, are we at the beginning, or are we surpass other races when it comes to films or whatever? But majority would, because I don't like when we say that, like 10 years from now, even though we'll do a lot more films, people will say we've done so much work, but we still got so far to go. I'm wondering who's that director that's is gonna say we're there now. Like it ain't no more. We just getting started. There's always gonna be new avenues and things that we create, but I'm hoping it comes to, because I think if it was a director out there that pushed that say, we're here now. We're making films. We're telling our stories. Like the people that's up and coming wouldn't have to wonder if they can make a film. They would just make it because they'll see other people doing it. Mm-hmm. So I'm just hoping that we can get more on the lines of saying that we're there already. So we'll be more confident in raising funds and stuff like that.
So it's one of those mountaintop things. Where's the mountaintop? Are we there? Are we at the mountaintop yet? Is this what was prophesized? Well, you know, I was talking to Charles Woods, who I do a podcast with. He's a film historian. And are there people here that actually watch the show and listen? And all that? Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Tell me your name real quick. Gregory, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. So, you know, he was saying that proportionately we kind of are at the mountaintop. You know, there is, as far as right now, if African Americans, people identified as black in this country, represent 13% of the population. We're well over that in terms of representation currently in film, in Hollywood features. I don't know if that's true, but he was saying that, you know, and the main concern is, you know, how many other groups are underrepresented. You know, how often do you see Asian people in films? How often do you see Latinos? Now, we're also a primary consumer of this stuff as well, so it's been a long time coming to that. The reason I'm here, the reason Harry is speaking is because these cycles tend to be reactionary, not you know, things that we instigate, you know, proactive. So, and you can read Entertainment Weekly, Spike Lee, he says that his Oscar nomination is a direct response to the Oscars So White hashtag movement. You know, that's a reaction to, you know, pushback, you know, especially in the age of a Trump, where, you know, no liberal-minded person wants to be accused of being racist in this day and age. So a lot of effort was made to create programs, greenlight more films that were representative of a lot of diversity. Also the Me Too hashtag, you've seen all the changes that are occurring in that. So, you know, the question is, will it be sustained beyond this, or is it just appeasement? And then also, you know, a lot of these faces, you see Kevin Hart, how young he is, and no muscles whatsoever. You know, a lot of people that are in the door now, they've been knocking, standing by that door for a long time, right? So when the call comes out, where are these people? And, you know, Ava's one of those people who's insistent, like, well, you can't hand that to me and say that there's no qualified people available. Melvin Peebles was one of those people that fought the union and said, look, I'm not going to make a film for you unless you have a certain number of black people training or whatever. I don't care about if it blows the budget up or whatever. It's not, you know, we're not going to be able to continue if we don't have more people learning practically as opposed to, you know, other ways. So, so the people that are making films now have been standing by that door for a long time, and my concern is twofold. Because I've seen a lot of subcultures run their course. What happens with the next wave, and what motivates them? What is your idea of success? Is it the monetizing, because we all have to live, or is it something deeper, more spiritual? Like me, personally, I see film as my religion, you know, and I see it as an extension of all the stories that we've all learned how to conduct our lives through, the mythologies, the fireside, you know, that light coming, you know, at first it's reflected off the screen, now it's literally coming out of the screen, is our modern day, you know, sitting around the campfire for me, you know. So it's very important. It's not just about representation. For me, it's more about the justice of, you know, righting some of the wrongs. When we didn't have control over our images in these films, in these stories, we were completely vulnerable to these stereotypes, and now we tend to perpetuate them ourselves, you know. So it's almost like the disease of racism has infected us, where we act towards ourselves. They don't even need to stand there. I don't think there are any white folks in the room by the time they got to Soul Plane. You know, it's like it's just like we do a better job whipping ourselves sometimes than white folks ever could. We do a better job inflicting harm and pain on ourselves. So part of it is just, you know, for me, my mission is dismantling. If Spike Lee was like demystifying the process of making films, it's also demystifying what these stories mean, how they affect people. You know, I went to some of the best film schools, but they'll still teach you, without hands-on experience, they'll teach you how, from the outside, how a film is made and what it should look like. It's sort of like trying to reverse engineer a hot dog. It's like, I know it tastes good, but you know, there's so much going on here. Unless I'm at the plant, I'm never gonna be able, or even, like, have you ever tried, like, to make a Big Mac yourself? Like, you got the beef, you can go to the store and get the beef, you can get the bun, you can even cut the bun the way it looks, but you'll never be able to get it to taste exactly the way it is when you buy it, and there's a reason why, and I think education is important to understand how to deconstruct what goes into film, ultimately reaches people and affects the way they behave. So, and anybody else, where do you think we are? Yeah.
This may be an off-topic question, but I was wondering, do you think that Black Panther or even Get Out are ushering in sort of this era of Afrofuturism, maybe as a subgenre?
Does Get Out Afrofutures and Get Out and Black Panther Afrofuturism? Well, I mean, it's been absolutely, yes, to answer your question. I think for a long time, there's been a desire to see ourselves in the future or use other levels of mythology. And, you know, when there's only 3 channels on the dial, you weren't going to get that investment from anybody to be able to do that. So we had to rely on comic books and novels. I know Amazon just bought the rights to an Octavia Butler story. I think Ava might be involved in that, or certainly at the end, she's. This is going to look bad on the camera. Victoria Mahoney is involved with the Octavia Butler thing. So it's coming, and I've always said, if it's about imagination, I don't really want to regurgitate the past. You know, for me, you know, it's really about reinventing mythology or helping people to imagine a future. I think a lot of what we see is because, in terms of real life, is because Black folks are constantly being reinforced with this idea that our lifespans are meant to be short, you know. And a lot of people have a very self-destructive mentality when it comes to that, seeing over and over. You know, I feel like I personally had the benefit of being raised by grandparents. I spent a lot of time with elders. I never had this imagining. I never saw a kid get killed in my class. You know, obviously kids died, you know, young. I know people like that, but no one was. There wasn't a murder rate, you know, and there's certainly no fear in going in the 80s that somebody's going to come in angry and just shoot things up, you know. So I think that becomes a part of our psyche, and the way to purge that is through the future, through the pride. I always said what was great, and it was a double whammy Disney pulled on. You had Black Panther in March, I think it was, and then April we had Wrinkle in Time. So you had 2 ideals of Black folks being imagined in a futuristic world or a futuristic place. Your imagination's limitless in those spaces. And then on top of that, that same chunk of time, we had Hidden Figures. And I think that probably did so much more to empower people's belief that they could achieve things than anything, because you had 3 powerful women. Yeah.
We sort of wasn't able to make the first half of it, but I really like what you're saying.
Glad you're here.
What you just said, you know, imagine seeing things, and you can imagine that they're achievable. I want to remark on the fact that Terrence Blanchard,
Black Klansman. Spike Lee, Terrence Blanchard.
He got nominated for an Oscar, and Black Film Composer hasn't been nominated since '86.
Oh, for composing, not songs. For score.
The underscore, yeah.
So it would have been around midnight or something like that?
Yeah, around midnight, Herbie Hancock.
Okay.
That was the last time he actually, huh?
Did he do that one? Terrence Blanchard?
No. Herbie Hancock did around midnight.
Yeah.
But and I brought that up because I'm a black man who's aspiring to be a film composer like that, and it really encouraged me to keep pursuing my dream.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like my question is, like, how can you move forward and go into directions so that there are more diversity in that field?
Seeing more black composers in film, what's needed?
Yeah.
Excellence, quite frankly, and people that are willing to hold the door open. I think, also saturation, just the reality thing, if you go back to Chris Rock's Oscars, when he hosted the Oscars, his monologue was great. I always borrow from it, where he's like, black folks really should not want to go in the past. We don't like that, MAGA stuff, because if you go back past the 70s, we're really not a comfortable experience to go see a film, and so all this stuff. One of the bigger problems for Hollywood, their lack of imagination to cast a black person, and it almost has existed in history. It has to happen in some level of reality for it to even be considered to be cast. So that's where you see Michael B. Jordan saying, like, at one point he was like on record, like, I don't even want to go out to audition or be considered for roles that are just written specifically for black folks. I want to break that open, So there's a lack of imagination on the system's part, as well as how it affects our own imagination of what we are. Like, I was born in '69. I have a very difficult time imagining anything prior to 1960 existing in black and white. In my mind, when somebody says 1954, my head thinks Pleasantville. I don't have rich colors the same way that my mother does. When I say 1954 to my mother, it's a whole different landscape, So one of the things that we do with the channel, is like dig through just old documentaries and things, just to show regular people and faces and things, images in color. One of the most successful videos on the channel is The Secret of Selling the Negro, which was used in the James Baldwin documentary, but because of the title, it creates a lot of, it's propaganda for Johnson Publication, it creates a lot of dialogue. And a lot of people are like, wow, how dare they say that about us? And it's like they don't realize it's financed by black people to try and get them to buy advertising in Ebony magazine. But to me, it's like, wow, this is one of the few examples of seeing full color images of regular black people minding their own business. Prior to that, unless it's somebody's personal home movies, I think we have on the channel, like somebody took a color movie camera to visit George Washington Carver at Tuskegee, in like the 30s, but there's very seldom do we get a color image of ourselves where it's not some level of degradation. But back to Chris Rock, so he's just like, we exist too much in reality. Like, you go see black movies, you go see a movie called Car Wash, it's set in a car wash. You go see Barbershop, it's at a barbershop. Right, so he said, well, what's the next movie? Check, Cash, and Place? We have to expand. That's his joke. We have to expand the idea of what movies stand for and what was great about. All right, I'll take credit for Chris. Hey, well, all right, so it's tit for tat. I actually wrote a joke for Chris Rock. I never get credit for it, so I'll take that laugh. Yeah, so we have to expand our own possibilities in terms of stuff. And I think what was great about Get Out, Get Out was interesting because it forced white audiences to deal with what it's like to be in our skin for 2 hours at least, right? Like, there's no way, like in order to appreciate the film, you had to empathize and root for a black man for 2 hours, right? So I thought that was the subversive thing for me. I don't know if anybody else got that, but, and then for Black Panther, I walked out, like, I didn't think it was that great, quite frankly. I thought it was just like, there are Marvel movies I like way better, like Doctor Strange and Spider, that movie tripped me out. I was like, wow, but for 2 hours, we got the experience of what white folks get all the time with Tom Cruise and Keanu. Like, we literally got to be superheroes, and I understand the energy and the pride and all that. And, I just want some more money to come back. I don't want to be like 30 years from now interviewing somebody that was up in Black Panther and just like, what happened, It's like, you didn't save your money. Like, I don't want, like, behind the music, the cast of, sad enough what happened to Hammer, and I love Hammer, I love Mike Tyson. Those were our heroes 30 years ago, and now we're rooting for these folks, and it's like, I just save your money, something, because nothing's promised unless you own it yourself, and then they can still eminent domain you. So, that being said, I'm doing my part to help the homeless black actors from the 70s. When I get enough money, I don't need a whole lot, maybe $10,000 and an iPhone, I'm gonna make a film called Get It Your Damn Self. Right, and it's just like, because everybody it's just a message, everybody who knows ever done anything substantial in life, they understood the rules, but they were willing to break them, right? And then they get to a point where it's like, well, why are you still there? Just go out and get your own. So it's sort of like the Sunshine Boys. Harry, this is an investment for this. Let me know here in Denton. I can film it in Denton. Just need one room in the Embassy Suites, right? But it's a role for Jimmy J.J. Walker and Todd Bridges. And it's sort of like the Sunshine Boys. Do you remember that one? Like there's two old actors, like kind of fed up with each other. But I need a role for, and if Jimmy Walker doesn't want to do it, Rodney Allen Rippey is a good alternative. But it's just, they're grumpy and they're old and they live together, and anytime one wants something from the other person, it's like, hey, can you hand me a cup of tea? So get it your damn self, right? For 2 hours, just anything that's in the room, just like, hey, Todd, can you hand me that TV guide? Get your damn self. And we can do one take, and just pay these guys, and somebody will watch it. I'm sure this video here is going to get at least 10,000 views. Get it your damn self. Well, look, and it could be a movement. You could get any two old actors or just make a whole meme out of it. Just give me credit. That's where we are. Just the hashtag get it your damn self. Yeah.
So one of the things that
there's somebody over here too, but anyway.
Asked often is why DPFF, right?
Yes.
Why would you want to do a Black Film Festival? And so part of
Well,
what
hang
you
on. This
said
is important. Can you take the mic? I just get the audio. You can hand it back. This is Harry. It'll reach. It's definitely long enough.
Yeah, so we get the question all the time, why a Black Film Festival, right? Mm-hmm. And so our response, quite frankly, is why not? Mm-hmm. And so when people think about that, what we came to the conclusion of is that I grew up I'm a little older than Michael, by maybe a couple months. A little older.
Black don't crack, does it? I got to shave this off. I gotta.
So you're trying to say?
I didn't know we're in a college town, Harry. I would have shaved all this off.
Yeah.
This doesn't go away. I just have to pretend. But anyway, so.
But part of it had to do with when I was a little boy, I didn't really see images that looked like me. My image was watching the Ten Commandments, right? And asking my dad, like, those people, those colored people, what do they do? Mm-hmm. And he just looked at me and just kind of shrugged his shoulders, right? Mm-hmm. So it was different seeing that, but I thought it was a great movie, right? So I thought it was a great movie. But so when we started thinking about this, we said, what would happen if people could just share their stories and tell them, Would that be relevant to an audience, right? And so we're not filmmakers. Most of us are not filmmakers, right? So we thought it was a really good cause, but what we've enjoyed about it is that we now are able to help other people share their stories, right? And I listen to some of the people that come, and they're stories that they probably would not have seen before. And so that's really good. And 16 Bars last night, those of you saw that, is one of those stories where, you know, you're feeling someone else's pain, right? And you're like, wow, how did that person get here? So the question I have leading up, so the question I have is, I understand what you're doing, and I understand to some extent why, but I think there is a transition going on, and it has been for a while. So kind of, you know, how do you see yourself and your colleague, your partner, how do you guys see yourself in really being able to codify that for a much broader audience, right? And help people kind of figure out where they are. Because one of the things that's amazing to me, so my experience, you know, was back in the 50s, right? And I could see certain things, but by the time I got old enough, I was in the 60s, right?
Right.
But when I started finding out what people did back in the 40s and 50s, I was kind of shocked, like, oh my gosh. You know, but, you know, I wonder how much data do I need, right? We talk about AI, right? But how much data do I need to help me understand how significant something is? And so I just thought some of the things that you talk about are really relevant, you know, in that regard.
All right, I can give you a story. Hopefully I'll touch all your spots. I'll just, because I'm going to ramble a little, I think. But the goal is to connect your memories here, right? Because that's really what makes what this is about, right? I want to just throw some images. So, I mean, Harry, you're saying you know, I know how old you are. I'm not gonna tell you, but I'll tell him myself. I think that it's in our DNA to you know, however you want to respond. When you see somebody that looks like you automatically smile, right? And when you, unfortunately, we've been labeled this and that and the third, minorities and this, you know, and all the movies that I grew up watching kind of reinforce a certain thing, right? Like in the 70s, you had movies like, where every you know, you talk about Mountaintop, you almost get there, like the most promising person almost makes it, and then stuff gets shut down, you know, so it's like, here ain't nothing but a sandwich. Or every episode of Sanford and Son, they might find a lottery ticket. I want my daddy's records. By the end of the show, all the records are crashed and destroyed. All the money that was potentially there is gone, because in order for the show to work, they got to be back at the junkyard the next week, or Good Times, the same thing, right? So that's, you know, and as a kid growing up watching Webster and Different Strokes, I thought the only way I could be successful and rich in the world was if I was a little kid forever, you know, that was adopted by some white people, you know. So that affects your psyche. And then when you get to the 80s, you see a breakthrough. Finally, hip hop brings images of young people look like you, and they're resurrecting the Black Panther ideology and all that stuff. And that's my generation. That's what empowered me to want to tell stories and make films. And, you know, still buying into that dream. Like, wow, you know, even though going to NYU teaches you to be guerrilla filmmaker, independent, and then being in Los Angeles, part of the system, there still wasn't enough opportunity for me to really cast a bet. Like, it's just like, I'd see people make incredible short films in film school and then get lured into Hollywood and end up in development hell, or not make a film at all, just hanging out at Starbucks for 20 years, saying that they're writing scripts, or if they did get lured in, they'd have to make something that was substandard to anybody's taste. You know, the most, you know, movies like Ride, you know, Weinstein, or the most tragic was Inkwell. You know, there's Matty Rich makes a great independent film, and then they give him a shot at a Hollywood film. He's making a film about growing up at Red Hook projects, and they say, hey, can you come to LA or make a film about spending the summer in the Hamptons as a black bougie kid? I'm like, how's this gonna work, you know? So literally destroyed his career. Same thing, True Identity, beautiful film, Sidewalk Stories. And then, hey, can you make a movie about a black guy that's got to paint his face white to avoid being killed by the mob? It's like, and that's gonna be funny, you know? So it just, the level of lack of control that most of us had, I think, but you also have great things that come out of it, but mostly TV. You know, what Queen Latifah did with Living Single, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Martin, those are great touchstones for forever, you know, and you have 50, 60, 70 episodes of that stuff. So I think a lot of people, when they watch the channel, it reinforces, you know, that we do come from something, we can make great things, but you know, there's still that thing in our DNA where, because we're either underrepresented or misrepresentative, or maybe we don't have the power, it's still not ours. Like, you know, as much as we did this, like 3 months later, I'm rushing in to see Avengers. I'm like, yeah, more of this, right? And then by the end, well, everybody's seen it by now. It's like, you see what they do to us? It's like, well, you kill everybody off? Damn, you know, I thought I was gonna see a little more pride. It's like, no, we control it. We turn the water off whenever we want. So that's the game that I would like to see changed, you know, for the people. And I can't fault anybody whose dream it is to work in Hollywood or have a nice house or whatever. You have to work, you have to develop that. But if you can go back to the 30s and, you know, because these renaissances come every 20 years or so. And they were saying back then, there's enough wealth, there's enough of us, we can support our own system, there's enough black theaters, we could have our own means, our own infrastructure, but the thing about this dream is there's no ceiling, there's no walls, there's no floors, you know? So, to quote Barbara Mandrell, we're in Texas, right? There's no limit to what you can imagine this to be, but we're also at a time period now where I think we should all be re-examining and redefining what success means to us, because I don't think it's about the money at all. I think the money comes, but redefining success as opposed, like, I think we all have very specific individual gifts, and if they're developed, we can really heal this whole planet. And for me, being an artist, you know, that's my motivation. But we're still hardwired when we see people that look like us to react a certain way. Black folks on TV, come rush, come check this out, or that's why everybody's retweeting. It's the same thing as black folks. It was Michael Jackson. Everybody ran down the stairs and we stood by the TV and we spun and we did that. Or maybe I'm too old. Maybe when it was Thriller, that was really the last cultural moment. That wasn't a tragedy. Like 9/11 brought everybody together and watched TV, locked and glued. The last time we had a good feeling about that, I feel, was when Thriller came on TV. And everybody's like, all right, 8 o'clock, we're gonna drop this Thriller video, everybody be there, right? We didn't have Twitter to tell everybody, you know, that was the last galvanizing moment for me. So, you know, it's to bring more of that and not just the half-life of This Is America or a Lemonade video, everybody hashtags, or Bird Box is the thing everybody was talking about this week. You know, but how do you have a lasting value that resonates in a way where we can revisit it and not, like, I'm not looking forward to Coming to America 2. I really am not, because I have such fond, strong memories about the other one. So how do we recreate those feelings among us so that we feel hopeful and not helpless? Yes?
Do you think here in the future that more African American women will have a bigger platform when it comes to film? Because Taraji, when she did Proud Mary early last year, she went on this rant about Hollywood really don't push films when it's just a African American woman as the lead. And it seems like we do better if the African American women are in a group, when it's 3+ African American women, I guess, because they probably can feed off each other. But if it's just one single African American woman, regarding whatever the story is, it's not an audience for that. Do you believe that it is, and that story just haven't been told, or they platform isn't as big or as loud as if it was just a single man?
Well, I mean, you know, knowing the power of words, even if I believed, I wouldn't speak it because it would resonate with people. I don't believe that to be true at all. No, I think right now we're in the midst of a big liberation for women across the board, and I think that Taraji, I don't know the specific complaint, but I didn't like her film. If she made a better film, more people would go see it. And I think we're microwaving these movies. The same thing with Tiffany Haddish. I mean, I was excited for Night School, and when I went there, I was like, why am I sitting here? That could be in my drawers. I could have waited 6 months on this one. I could have easily, you know, I don't BitTorrent, but this was not made for a theatrical $15 experience. But I think black women in general, are getting all the opportunities in 2018 to tell their stories. What's missing from that? I'm not a black woman. I mean, did Proud Mary speak to you? Did it give you the fantasy that you wanted? Or was Girls Trip the movie that that makes you laugh? You watch it 20 times in a row? Or, I mean, like how would you answer that question? You're on the spot now.
With Girl Trips, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked it. I thought it was funny. But with what was the other one? Proud Mary.
Night School. I mean, you know.
Night School, I didn't see that because I knew it wasn't gonna be anything worth my money for. But Proud Mary, I liked Proud Mary. I thought like story-wise, it could have been better, but like from like a cinematic aspect, like camera movements and all that, I liked it from that aspect. But like story, it could have been better.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think we're just at a point now where we've been so underrepresented across the board, and now there's more opportunity because there's more channels also. I mean, like when it was in Philly, it was 3, 6, and 10. Like you got 2 hours a week. You got Sanford and Son, Good Times, and then maybe you got A-Team or something like that for your representation. Now you got all these channels to fill. They're on all day long, and you can't put Martin on every single channel. So they gotta pay money. And Netflix is great because they don't recycle. Like they got people addicted in a way where they binge the stuff, and then the next month it's like, what more you got, you know? So they gotta keep giving us more and more. So I don't think that on that level, I don't think it's gonna go away. But yeah, I think excellence trumps everything. If you give me a good movie, I'm happy to go see it. But it's been a long time since I've seen something that I really can strongly recommend. Get Out, honestly, was like the last thing that I actually left the theater like amped up about. Like yeah, I want to see that again. Let's do that again. Or, you know, or Django or something. It gives you all the bells and whistles of a Hollywood movie, but you also feel like a truthful part of your experience in it. And I think a lot of what is happening, a lot of people are making films that it's divided. I would say half the movies you're seeing are, wow, I want to make a movie like the movies I grew up watching, but I was never cast in them, you know. So it's like, you know, remaking like Dope, you know, that was nothing but risky business with black people, and they substitute drugs for prostitution. It literally, I don't know if anybody's made that connection, but Dope was a fun movie, but it literally was an 80s sex comedy, almost the same plot as Risky Business, but with black folks and newer music. So you're getting that, or you're getting movies that can only be made by black people because of the topic, and if it was made by a white person, either black folks would be offended that a black person wasn't qualified to do the job, or we'd be even more offended because there's so much hateful, racist crap in it that if a white person said that about us, we'd be ready to burn down the theater, you know. But because it's a black director, a black writer, we give that dysfunction a pass, you know. And maybe it's helping to cleanse souls, I don't know. But I think that pathology keeps people away from the theater as well. You know, it's like we have a lot of pain at home. But that being said, also don't discount Will Packer in the conversation. He's one of the few black producers in Hollywood whose intention is to create stars. He built Kevin Hart's career. He built Girls Trip. Now this year he's seeing nothing but spinoffs. He's like the Norman Lear of black film. Like, you know, dude, I'm giving old references. Norman Lear, anybody? He did, like, he would have a successful show like All in the Family, then he would throw characters in and then make new shows off the characters, so you get Maude and Jeffersons and all that by introducing you to characters through the hot show. So Girls Trip introduced not new characters, but gave a platform for 4 great actors to have opportunities to now be spun off in their own films and create their own stardom. So, and then on the directing end, you have filmmakers like Ava DuVernay and Gina Prince Bythewood. I mean, I see the majority of the work that is representative, that's really quality, is black women directors. So I mean, but obviously we can fit more people in. Not everybody gonna fit on the plane, you know, but I said that to Aaliyah, so not everybody gonna fit on there. Ooh, that was cold-blooded? I'm sorry. I said, Aaliyah, don't put them all on. You just, like, you can't fit everybody in. And I don't think every black person needs to be making film either. Like, some of it can stay on Instagram, some of it can stay on YouTube. I don't need to see every film as far as representation. I want to leave feeling good. Yeah, I'm sorry, that was cold-blooded. I apologize. Poor taste. Too soon? It was 30 years ago.
As a young African-American female woman, I would say that in previous years, there hasn't been much representation of people who look like me in films, especially cast in roles where they're independent from a man, you know, especially in those lights. I remember in high school, we would look at films and we would say, okay, these women, they only speak about men or around men, you know, but recently, since I've been in college and been grown or whatever, there's more films of women speaking about themselves and their lives independently, and it makes you feel more empowered as a woman, seeing people in roles that don't necessarily pertain to men living their own lives and having their own stories, and that just helps us view ourselves differently. As well, I'm a fan. I'm a connoisseur. So as a connoisseur,
What films do you like?
What films do I like?
That left me feeling good.
Left me feeling
Not
amazing.
Now, if you say you like the Aaliyah biopic, then I sincerely apologize to everybody for my poor joke. That movie was worse than my joke. Anyway, go ahead.
The film with Taraji P. Henson that she did about NASA. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. So I'm forgetting a lot of stuff right now. What was that one called? Hidden Figures. So that film left me feeling amazing to see that women like me were involved in those types of things. Other films that has nothing to do with, well, I would say Girlfriends. It's not a film, but that's a series. I love Girlfriends. I still watch it to this day. Yeah, so it makes me feel great about women in our life. But then again, I debate with him all the time about Girlfriends. They had everything, but they was still everyone was still trying to get a man, you know? Like, then again, still, everybody was still trying to get a man and marry. Yeah.
It's the same show.
Yeah, so. I remember some of Living Single. I was young, yeah. So I remember some of Living Single, but I still watch Girlfriends. So things like that are becoming, or even Issa Rae, actors with platforms like that are becoming more popular in black female directors, and more of a platform for us to see ourselves and tell our stories.
No, I get it. I mean, I felt the room light up when Ava popped on. Like, you know, the Urban World, I saw people's like face light up. I mean, she definitely symbolizes and represents a big door opening for a lot of people, and you know, the squeaky door gets the oil, you know. So, but I've been saying it forever, you know, there's an incredible amount of talent and there's an incredible number of talented actresses, and why aren't they getting better roles? I mean, What Men Want, Taraji owns that movie. I was like, she's channeling Lucille Ball, but there's some things in it that remain problematic for me in terms of like what I want to show that to a young girl. Is like if you're coming away from Hidden Figures, which is something that is designed for everybody, and then you say, well, Taraji's gonna go sit in this room and watch this thing, the sex comedy. It's not necessarily going down the same avenue, you know. But yeah, I mean, we have a segment of Black love on film. It's very seldom. How do you repair things? How do you build strong, healthy relationships? We constantly see the problems that exist in our neighborhoods, our culture, our society. We know stories will help heal them, or at least address them, point the elephant out in the room. But then by the time it gets to us, there's always some level of compromise. And is it the system? Is it unfair to the artist? Because, we're still in this phase where we kind of anticipate that one film is going to speak for a whole race of people, and that's, nobody else does that. You don't see Jerry Seinfeld caping for Artie Lang or something. There's two different spheres of comedy, but somehow the way films are made and marketed, we're expected to go see everything. And I'm just saying, there's not time anymore to see everything, and the bar just needs to be raised a bit for me to continue to support it. But anyway.
Do you think, when it comes to like directors, actors, people that work in the film industry, they speak too much when it comes to like diversity with film? Because there's certain people that filmmakers, they would say, oh, this film is for Americans, it's for everybody. And I think a lot of viewers, we ain't stupid. Like, we know this film, this is black issues, this is a black film, this is for black people. But like, Get Out, I think is a great example of touching both race. I think people in there, we felt that, white and black. But some stuff is just generic. Well, we know this is a black film, but they always trying to sell it as it is for everybody when it's not.
I think you answered your own question. I can't add too much more to that. I agree with you. I think it's mass media, and I think when I talk to regular folks, just like not at a film festival, just like at the Walmart or something, most people, they don't watch movies. They don't pay money to see movies. They don't go see them in theaters. They wait for them, or they don't watch them at all. I feel like the audience is migrating to things like YouTube and places where you can experience exactly what you want to see when you want to see it. So, but Hollywood has a very antiquated idea in terms of who they imagine their audiences to be. I think Netflix is succeeding in terms of financing work because they know the algorithm. They pretty much know exactly who's watching everything at all times, right? So they know what percentages, more so than even HBO, which would give you like one black show at a time. Like, so when Def Comedy came on, it was enough to keep people subscribed. And then when that went off, they got The Wire, or Oz. They always kept at least one hot show for you to be talking about, just to keep you giving them the $10. Now, they perfected that. So we're gonna get those things, but be careful the word diversity, because it can mean a lot of different things, and I can speak from my own experience, because diversity, and also I'm not divisive in the sense of people think black folks are like American descendants of slaves. I disagree with that, because it doesn't matter what you are. If you have a certain hue or you have a certain attitude, you're gonna be labeled the same. And I think there's strength in numbers. We should defend that identity and take pride in that. That's why I say real black. It's not real Negro. It's not real African American, because to me, black is the strongest representation of the culture that I feel I'm a part of. But yeah, I was a Martin Luther King scholar when they started it, right? So I took on more responsibility being in college. Not that I didn't feel I didn't belong there, but I knew that somebody had died for me to have the ability to get a full ride, And we had so that was like, and we took offense. There was one person who identified themselves as of color, and they're actually Mexican, and they're very light-complected Mexican, but they were given the scholarship, and we hated her, right? We're giving her a hard time all the time, right? But 20 years later, they had the anniversary, like everybody come back, and this scholarship, there was like 2 black people getting the scholarship, same number, like 20 scholars, but they redefined the idea of diversity to include everybody that wasn't white Anglo-Saxon. And I think diversity also factors in with women, and that's great. But ultimately, in a system that's ultimately more interested in dollars than really trying to bring justice to people or fairness or whatever, just be aware of that. It's not a guarantee that when they say means you, no, they say I'll put it now. Don't be offended. It's a joke. I'll warn you now. All right. So if they say to you, all right, we're offering you. Tell me your name again. Gregory. We're offering Gregory a diversity scholarship. You know, we're gonna pay your way to learn and do all the things and be great. Take that scholarship. Be diverse, right? Now, if the police stop you and say, "Nigga, get out of the car," whoever's in the car better get out, because they're not playing either. So you can be, choose, take whatever comes at you. Realize that the person in power is the one that controls it. So ultimately, in this game, you want to be in as much control of your image and your story and maintain your power and be conscious of the images that you're putting out, because it's a global thing and it really does affect the way everybody not only sees you or how you feel, but the world begins to act in lockstep to it. It's a very dominant culture that black folks have. I mean, it's like, I'll give you one last, I can't find any women that like me. No women like me, because I don't fit the archetype. You know, you're exposed, you see these guys in movies, and so I don't look like that, right? And I talk to these women, and it's not that there's a lack of good men, like a good man is hard to find. That's not true. All women are looking for the same two guys, right? The two archetypes, it's either Barack Obama or Lil Wayne. And that's all we get. So there's lots of room in between. Where can we see it? That's the question mark for film and representation, and for me, justice. You know, because it's just so damaging what images do, how it affects our perception, and how other people perceive. I'm here, and I'm so glad everybody else is here, because I just wanted to just reinforce the idea while everybody else is on the ski lift. I'm so happy that Harry invited me here to share, and I know, and all these people, you know, that are in the film, at one point they were as close as we are, and it's very realistic, but it's also a lot of work. I mean, Ava's the hardest working person. A lot of these people don't get sleep. Lee Daniels, was Lee in this movie? Did I have him? Was he in it? I've interviewed, I messed up, I have to read it. I talked to Lee Daniels a lot, he's from Philly. And one time I talked to him, and he was doing a movie with Mariah Carey. I interviewed him, and I said, "Lee, is it true that you had a heart attack in the middle of making this movie?" And you know how Lee is. You know, it's like, "Yeah, I had a heart attack and a stroke." I was like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah." And making this film, I said, "Why? You know, why are you doing this? Why are you putting all this pressure on yourself?" He's like, "Because I love movies so much that if I died on the set, that would be my glory." You know, and people like that and Tyler Perry and Kevin Hart, they work overtime at that goal, and they don't see the obstacles, and I think that's really ultimately what it takes. Hey, is anybody, you're over dominating, but I'll get you. Is anybody else? All right, one, and then you. All right.
My name's Cameron Saint. I'd like to know your opinion on African Americans, reality TV, and how we're portrayed, potential.
I don't watch it enough. Is it real? Is it really reality? I direct a reality show, and it was all, we were staging that stuff. So
Is reality millions to watch?
the only connection I have, I mean, somebody else tell me, because I don't watch it. So I was at the post office, and the people were like, "Do you watch that Ratchet stuff? I love Ratchet," right? And I'm just like, so it's entertainment for you. Like watching the dysfunction?
No, because it's repetitive.
Me personally, I don't necessarily watch. I watch reality TV shows sometimes, but it's entertainment. It's funny, but it gets to a point where I'm 22, and growing up, girls my age, they would watch it and think that's what they aspire to be like, the girls in a Bad Girls Club, and have these attitudes, and because that's the only thing they see represented of themselves in TV. Like I said, a lot of black women didn't have a lot of get their real stories told, but that's what they see, and they feel like, oh, I'm a little black girl. These are black women. They're pretty. They're living these lives. They're going to these extravagant islands. I want to be like that. So they took a lot of those attitudes and attributes on themselves, and I feel like it was dysfunctional to that point, when people don't realize that it's just entertainment and that's not how you supposed to live your lives, they're taking quotes from these shows and thinking that it works for them when it's dumb.
Well, I'm very impressionable. I remember, I'm again showing my age. When I discovered my first Richard Pryor album, I cursed like a sailor for probably like 5 weeks. I got slapped every day, but that Richard Pryor is something I said, boy, that had a big effect on me, and I was cursing. And so maybe that's why I've never been accused of being ratchet. So maybe I don't gravitate to it. But yeah, I think that's the nature of stardom. It's changed because now we used to look up at the screen. Now we're like here with the screen, or like here at most, right? So before even if you feel, like if you put your eyes a certain way, you feel a different thing activating. So when you're here, you want your stars to be accessible, and what Instagram does, again, like I can tap myself up, and there are a lot of people that you know that look like Lil Wayne, but they don't have the talent of a Lil Wayne. So it's very easy to replicate the exterior, and I suppose, you know, I have a problem with it, but I have a problem with people exploiting it. But I also like Cardi B, you know. I mean, she's very entertaining, and she came out of that realm. And if somebody, I mean, you know, no, she's still a hooker, you know. Like, people are mad. No, I mean, like she's been gentrified, and everybody thinks she's cute. She's performed at the AVN Awards. Everybody's mad at Gladys Knight for being at the Super Bowl, and Cardi B is performing at the Adult Video Awards, and nobody's saying a thing. So all I can say, the strength of that is be true to yourself. And if you're not reflecting that, and that's who you are, that's how you grew up, and now you have a star like that, or Tiffany Haddish, that's me, and they're successful, they have power, then we all need that. You know, before we had sports figures, I was a big O.J. Simpson fan. You see what happened to him. I can't like, you know, because he was hiding something of himself. Bill Cosby, my idol, hiding something of himself. Cardi B, I think you can ride with Cardi B your entire life, and then when she finally finds God and brings everybody with her and pulls her implants out and has the big implant burning, then we'll all be free. Yeah, we're wrapping it up. Yeah.
So part of it is, the number one thing we hear from filmmakers,
Yeah.
is distribution.
Distribution.
And I don't know if you talked about that when I left.
Okay.
But you know, we have a number of filmmakers here, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the number one thing they talk about. It's really a financing issue. How do I get money to help me, you know, make a film and then get it distributed, so that I can't keep spending $2,000, $10,000, $20,000. Even though it's my passion, I would really like to get some return. So
how do you get financing? Well, you know, the old adage, you know, how do you make $1 million in Hollywood? Go there with 10 million? You know, so most of the people are successful up until now, including now, have gone in with some level of money, you know, and that's why it's important to know the backstory on everything, you know, and even when you're writing your business plan, a lot of people, they make the mistake of, when they say, we're trying to get investors, they'll say, we're making a horror film, and they'll make a list of, our film is like Get Out, which made $100 million, and then they'll list all the other successful horror movies, and say, well, if you invest with us, you'll make $100 million too, you know, and then the small print is like, well, results may vary. But, so I think the more you know, the more likely you're gonna come in successful, but it just boils down to faith. If you have a solid idea that's either not been done before, or you have a connection with talent where you're working equally hard as them, and you're giving somebody an opportunity to do something that they haven't done before, then it's very likely you can get that talent attached to your project, and they can help walk you can use their relationships to help you get your story made. That's ultimately how things work. And as we advance, you're starting to see a lot of actors that have box office superiority starting their own production companies. Viola Davis has Juvie, you know, like Kevin Hart has Heartbeat, Taraji, you know, you'll see a lot of people, they will work for less money if they have back-end participation, which is the pure foundation of what Blumhouse does. If you watch the channel, or Real Black TV, you'll see, I interviewed Jason Blum. He is the mastermind behind this whole paradigm shift when it comes to horror. He was involved with Paranormal Activity, and his whole business model, he literally produces 50 movies a year, and none of them have a budget over $10 million. And all the talent has a big chunk of the back end, and the way he works it is he makes the movies for as little money as possible. That's why a lot of the times you see these horror movies, I don't know if you pay attention, who's a big horror fan? Horror movies suck, and I'll tell you why. Because they all have the same model, which is haunted house. Like they're all shot all within one location. That's how you keep it cheap. Like if you don't have to move, like Get Out literally is basically shot on that one house estate with maybe half a day where they're driving up a road or something, and the rest of it you can just move. You can do like 50 setups a day if you do it that way. Right? So you can easily make a movie if you keep it locations limited, cast limited, and that's the formula. And then when they have the movie packaged, they can go to a studio and say, like, this is the poster. We feel this could make $100 million, but you have to spend $50 million promoting it. And then that's how they sign off. But they keep the cost low. It has strong talent. They keep it genre-based. But yeah, it's just how do you get the money? You build relationships with people that have money. If you don't have money naturally, stick within genres where things sell, and trust that ultimately the money will come back if it's marketable. Like if it's just a story you want to tell or you want practice, just film on your iPhone, use the video camera and get your friends together. But if it's about a business thing, it all boils down to us, the audience. What are we willing to pay for? I'm telling you now, like I'll go see virtually anything that tantalizes me, but I don't have enough time, you know. So ultimately, audience is in charge, right? So, and audiences all want the same thing, which is a level of familiarity, but still a twist, something that's different that you haven't seen before. And that's where black film is winning, because there's so many stories that we haven't seen before as it relates to our experience. And if you can do it in a way that is palatable, either genre-wise the way Get Out did it, or historically the way Hidden Figures did it, or just with an old story with a new twist, like a ride-along, you know, you can market it to the world, and everybody will want to see it, and everybody will connect with it. Because I mean, you know, and not to get We Are the World. Ultimately, we all want the same things when we go for our entertainment. So I see a lot of winning in the future, but just don't kill the golden goose. You know, don't keep, because that's what killed the '70s era. There was an audience couldn't wait to see the next Fred Williamson movie or the next Pam Grier movie, but when they get to all be the same, people choose to stay home. And then when they build a multiplex and you have more than one choice, people gravitate to what's going to give them the bigger bang, which is what Jaws did and Exorcist and Star Wars. So you know, just where Afrofuturism, like open up, you know, whatever that next realm is. I count on younger people, fresh faces to bring it, and also don't forget that there are lots of experienced people in the mix that you can rely on. I always say, to be divisive, I always point out Jada Pinkett, because after Will Smith didn't win the Oscar for concussion, or nominated for the Oscar for Concussion, she got on Instagram or Facebook, and she sat in front on this chair, and do you remember the video? It was like an elephant tusk in the back, and she's like, "I'm sick of this. Who cares about the Oscars? We're gonna make our own films." And I'm like, looking, I was like, you could have traded that elephant tusk in behind you and given a scholarship to somebody or made a film with your own money. How many cameos in a student film or independent film has Jada Pinkett made? You know, how often does she talk about that struggle? When I see her on talk shows, she's how much money to spend for a vacation, you know, and all that other stuff. So to me, that's hypocrisy. And then when you look at the success, we started by talking about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. That would have never happened if not for Ryan Coogler's first film. Can anybody name?
Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale Station, right? So now he's the top student at USC. Do you know who produced Fruitvale Station? Forrest Whitaker. Who co-starred in it? Octavia Smith. So these are people that were established. And I would give all the credit to Forrest Whitaker. He sought out a Ryan Coogler. And not to say that they didn't exist, but he sought out Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler went to Forrest Whitaker's office 3 times with script ideas. And finally, they said, the one that was closest to his heart, this Oscar Grant story, is the one that they found $2 million to go out and make. And it won all kinds of awards, got snubbed for the Oscars, but it introduced us all to somebody who was not only a unique voice and extremely talented, but was also trained through this USC film system to make movies that audiences want to see. And now out of that, we got Creed and Creed 2 and Black Panther and who knows what else. He's a mogul inside the system, on the verge of being at the level of what Tyler Perry exists inside the system as what Tyler Perry is outside the system. They're all making, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, with their work. So and you know, for their audiences, it sets a new bar. Well, I can't. I'm not going to fold Tyler Perry into my Ryan Coogler argument. I can't. I'm not that good a speak. I told you I'm not Barack Obama. He could have sold you on that one. I can't convince you. I can't convince you on that one. But you see my point, right? You need somebody that already has a little bit of something to take a risk and invest in the next thing. It's almost like you growing a plant. You save seeds from the previous crop and you use them to plant the next seed. So that's really why I'm invested in being here. I'm so happy that you are here as well. And any final thoughts or things? We actually love Green Book. We haven't put the review up, but everybody know Green Book has got there's controversy. It's a very easy target to say this is a magical Negro movie or this is Driving Miss Daisy in reverse. I mean, it's very obvious from the poster that that's what they're giving you. You know, so. If you know that going in, you don't go into McDonald's saying, shit, I thought this was Chick-fil-A. You know, where's the Whoppers? You know, my mom does that. Like I say, I'm going to Chick-fil-A, what do you want? Oh, can you get me a Whopper? I said, I'm going to Chick-fil-A, Mom. Do they have McNuggets? Chick-fil-A, Mom. It's the best chicken, homophobic chicken that you can get. Chick-fil-A, Big Mac. So when I go to see Green Book, I'm like, I already know going in what I'm up against. And I came out surprisingly, like for that type of film, because I sat through The Help, and I liked The Help, but I had big problems with The Help because of the lack of agency given the black characters. And to this day, Viola Davis is still like, I'm sorry I did that. How's Viola? I'm sorry I did that. Go see Widows. I'm sorry about The Help. But going in, I felt like they corrected the typical problems with the trope, which is the lack of agency. Now, the movie can't end unless the white person, Vito, gets a change of heart, so to speak, right? So he becomes slightly less racist, or slightly the overt action of his prejudice is reversed by the end of the film, and now the film can end and we can all go home, right? That's how you tell who the protagonist is, right? Like when their problem is solved, that signals the end of the movie, right? So Green Book, it's about the white guy, right? So as a black person, I know this movie really isn't for me, but I'm gonna watch it. And what I loved about it was the nature of the conversations weaved into so much of what we're experiencing today with the zeitgeist. And it wasn't coming from the Obama age stance of like the butler, like, wow, look at how much we've conquered. You know, like you can't go in now and watch these films and say, you know, wow, this guy, you know, is a Forrest Whitaker, you know, his eyes drooping, and he watched his mother get shot by the slave driver, the overseer, raped and shot, right? Is that how it opened? And then he leaves town, he decides he's gonna escape, but on his way out, he sees some brothers hanging, but he ends up working at the White House, and he witnesses all this stuff, and then Richard Nixon refuses him a raise, but then Ronald Reagan gave him the money that he always needed to get the new color TV so that he could watch Obama run for office. Now his wife doesn't live long enough to see that moment happen, but he lives long enough to experience it, and we all get to pay $15. Isn't America so great, you know? So, you know, but Green Book, it doesn't get into all that, and we don't have that perception going in that things have really changed, and it builds a dialogue, and it increases what talent, you know, you have to be super exceptional still to be in a film at all. If a Hollywood film, you have to be like, I mean, I think Hate You Give is an interesting film because, like I said, in the 70s, it was like the greatest thing almost happened, or Cornbread Earl and Me, like the most talented person is the one that gets shot by the police. This nigga wasn't doing nothing. He was just minding his business. He just didn't know the speech, you know, and then he ends up being taken out. But it increases heroism within the average proletariat, like the regular person who's having the dilemma finds their own strength, and that's the transformation in that film. And it's a little different. You don't have to be as exceptional to get shot by the police, is what Hate You Give is telling you. But Green Book is just, you still have to be like concert pianist of all greatest taste. Never eat a piece of chicken. No, I can't. I'm on my way to greatness. I can't eat this chicken. And, you know, so to be the subject of a Hollywood film, you know. So that's why you have to make your own films. Like I made a film about my grandmother voting for Obama. It was 10 times better than The Butler. Hate to say that to Lee Daniels. It won all kinds of awards, got me on CNN, and ultimately got me a camera that allowed me to film Ava DuVernay. So it can happen for you too. I'm here to be the root cause of your transformation. And 10 years from now, I'll be on Oprah's show when she brings it back. Yeah. You and then we'll be out of here. Thank you.
We're from Oakland. We're filmmakers.
Oakland?
Yeah, Oakland.
Oakland?
Oakland, California.
Love Oakland, yeah.
So,
The Bay. Y'all killed it this year. You had 3 movies that I loved. Blind Spotting, Gin, and Sorry to Bother You. I mean, I wish more regions would have that level of talent making films that people actually get a chance to see, but yeah.
But our movie is showing at 5 o'clock at the Alamo Draft House. It's called The Broken Rose. But
Broken Rose, I will be there.
The question is, coming from Oakland, we have a film company called the Oakland Film Company. No brainer, right? And I don't say we struggle, but it's always a question there. A lot of our stories are black, derived stories.
Mm-hmm.
What do you consider, based on the history of film, what do you consider a black film now?
We're supposed to start off with that, defining. I have a very loose, like Charles, who's working on a book, he's trying to define it. When we started the documentary, Warrington Hudlin said his definition is it has to be produced and directed, like the narrative power the person in charge of the finished product, the producer, the director, has to be black for it to be considered. But then that eliminates so many great films that reflect the black experience. So I'm very fluid with it. I just don't want to be super duper offended. You know, I know you're an artist, so you can't speak for everybody, but just don't. The low point for me was Soul Plane. Don't make it as bad as Soul Plane. And if your money's coming out the hood, don't make it so gully that, you know, it just turns into like stuff people cut drugs on. Like, just like that. Don't make that your vision. Like, this movie's so good, you know, when it's done, they're gonna flip the disc over and just cut their drugs on it. You know, so I'm gonna show you exactly how to cook, like, you know, like the Julia Child guide of how to spice your crack up. I don't need all that. Just put it, anything in between. That's a low rung, and then, you know, don't make it so highfalutin that it, like, Sorry to Bother You was highfalutin to me. Yes. Like, I felt like there's a lot of people, and it's like you also understand where the money comes from dictates what the story's about ultimately, right? Because movies can't exist unless they're funded, right? So you're making a movie through the Sundance Lab, you're getting producers, it appeals to a certain thing. You know, Boots is genius, but he has a very cosmopolitan view about blackness that doesn't necessarily resonate with me. And a lot of films that are coming out right now tend to be films about black folks made for white people to understand black folks better, right? So it doesn't necessarily resonate for me, but if I can get something like a Green Book, I can get something out of, that's cool. I just saw a Slave play in New York, and I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I'm the only black person here, all right. Okay, this is not made for me. It's not like, you know, like, if I go to church and I start to fall asleep, that's made for me, because then all of a sudden, the preacher start talking exactly to you, and you know the whole show is about you. And unless you have that one-on-one experience, you have to gauge the space. So let people know, because at 5 o'clock, what your film is about. Now.
It's about human trafficking. A young girl out of Oakland gets caught up in the system.
Okay.
And you know, we touched the emotional part of it. We won 6 Best Film Awards, we won 12 awards all together. You know, with God blessing, you know, we get distribution this year.
It's a big topic this year. Well, it was very topical. I mean, my classmate, well, he was in upper class. Adisa has a film, Skin in the Game, with that. And then I saw one, Traffic, which was, did you see Traffic? I mean, you know, we had Redbox. If Redbox, if you can get it back on time, Traffic. Otherwise, even if it comes on TV, don't even, just skip. Like, but Paula Patton's best role, she produced it, and she's very good in it.
Our working title was Traffic, and it was spelled the exact same way, and at the last second, we changed the title.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, Paula Patton's not in, though. Somebody should write something for Paula Patton. She's very good, but if you do it right, like, I love Idlewild. To me, that was one of the best films. If that's a black film. I mean, it doesn't really work completely, but films like that, that's what I want to see. I want to see movies that really incorporate all the levels of experience. Because I grew up on hip hop, and or even if you're more literate than me, Toni Morrison can flip stuff. Like, you'll be reading a paragraph and you're like, okay, you're like in the present day, and within the same paragraph, she'll flip 100 years back. And, you know, they did something like that in Slave Play, where this, gosh, I can't, Tiana Paris, she's like sweeping the floor and like dressed as a slave, and then all of a sudden Beyonce comes, Rihanna, Work comes in, and it just charges her body, and it just like quantum leaps a connection in terms of her psyche. You know, it's just like, why can't we do that more in film? Why do we always have to be tied into this linear thing, beginning, middle, and end? Why can't we really if we're taking audiences' imaginations with us, why do we always have to spoon feed everybody? I love it when somebody says, what did you just say? Yeah, that's the best part. Like when Coming to America, there's so many laughs in that movie. I don't know. I'm thinking myself, if you go see like Coming to America was the best film experience for me, because there were so many laughs nonstop, right? Did anybody else see it on the big screen? Harry needs to bring that back. When the Jerry Curl juice, and the three guys get off, and the Jerry Curl juice is just dripping down the couch. It just felt like they held that shot an extra second longer just to squeeze the laugh out. And people were like laughing so hard. You know, and Tyler Perry does this too. I saw like Boo, but Tyler Perry is all visual. It doesn't have the same thing. Like when you're at a comedy and the laugh so gets somebody say, "What did you just say?" Then you know you had a good experience. So hopefully you heard everything I said, and they're telling me to leave. Somebody.
I was just going to make a comment when you talked about the help and it being rather sophomore. Where it saw value to me is that the help in that movie
Yeah.
exactly represented my grandmother's life.
Oh, without question.
So it helped me explain that to my children. And
Oh.
visually let them know.
Oh, the help?
Feel what we're like.
Well, we need more images of that to connect ourselves. I don't know if I got your question. No, I'm not anti-help. I wasn't like, screw the help.
I'm just saying that was really the value that I saw in it, not the story.
Well, yeah, we all come. Yeah, that my grandmother was a registered a nurse's aide, you know, and I had the benefit. She lived in '94, and right before she passed, she lost her sight. She didn't have a chance to go see the help. But I asked her, I had the benefit of asking her what it was like for her to be serve people.
Grandmother graduated from high school. She was born in 1915, and she had to be in medicine. Obviously, that's not work.
Yeah, my grandma was 1918, so I filmed her. She told, and it was a great way to bond experiences, even when Hidden Figures. This is a story I'll tell them. Somebody pulled me away. Where's Sandman? Because I'll tell you, I didn't talk all day. When Hidden Figures came out, I was at Walmart. I guess it's Texas. Are you guys getting any money out of Walmart? Is Walmart sponsoring this or anything? It makes so damn much money. Can I get a free bottle of Sam's water while I'm here in Texas? But a woman working there, she said, Hidden Figures, you know, she said she was like of that age, and she was like, wow, when I saw that movie, it reminded me so much. I felt like I was that person. They were my age at that time. And I said, wow, what was that like? She said, you know, I had a job working at a drugstore, and I got an OIC, which was like, Joseph, oh shoot, you know, Daryl's gonna kill me for this. But you know, it's like a training program. OIC's all over the country, but it started in Philadelphia. And she was learning computers at the time, and she said, somebody came in from an insurance place down the street and saw her at the drugstore and said, wow, you know, I really want you to work for us, you know, at this insurance place. You can do the accounting or whatever. She left the drugstore. They moved her into the insurance agency, and she was training. She was getting paid. She's the proudest moment of her life. And she said they took a picture for a brochure, right? And she said, I still have the picture, like it was me working there at this place, insurance place. And you know, I still have the picture. And when you know, about a month after they took the picture, I got fired, right? They just used me for the brochure photo, right? So they said, but she still had the picture, so that could be where we are now. I'm just be aware when they're taking your picture. I'm being for real. I'm telling you the truth, because we've seen these cycles. Like, and I know a lot of people that are equally great as the people that we're applauding and celebrating. They're just not the fresh face, you know. And it's very frustrating that certain people don't get opportunities to make films that more people get a chance to see. Robert Townsend should have a legacy of work. Just you know, I always say if I had a studio, Dolomite, there wouldn't be just 4. And he'd have been like the Three Stooges for me. I don't care. I would have had 50 Dolomite movies if I ran a studio, right? So until we get to that point, it's just it's like any sport, you know. You just there are people that LeBron, you know, veterans that get to play for 20, 30 years, and then there's some guys that do 1 or 2 seasons, or women that you just remember forever, you know, and that's your girlfriends, that's your Martins, you know, they make a big difference. But you know, what's the end game? I don't know. I have no answer to that. But you know, just make sure you're in the picture, I guess is a positive side of it. We're all being used. And thank you for using me, and I'm hanging out. Make sure you all get buttons. Can you please get me off here? Thank you. I'm winded.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out to the screening and the discussion. And afterwards, if you haven't already, signed your name on the notepad up there, or you can scan the QR code to take a survey about the event.